You guys are all here for PyWeb API and PowerApps, right?
Yeah.
If everyone just stood up all of a sudden, I would have been scared. Yeah, thanks so much for coming. This is an insane turnout.
Yeah. We didn't expect so many people are interested in our talk. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
coming.
this motivates me though. Cool.
Like I said, I just want to wait for 1 minute for people still settle down. So, cheers.
I think we're good.
We're
We can
good?
go ahead. Yeah.
All right, go ahead, Eric.
Cool. Well, as the title implies, the main two technologies that we're going to showcase today are PyWeb API and PowerApps. A little bit about ourselves. My name's Eric. I've been with the company for about 4 years. I initially worked on PyCK, but currently I am a proud developer of PyWeb API. Rong.
Hi, my name is Rong Xu. I'm the team lead of PowerApps API team. And I've been with OSI for 11 years. 11 years is my voice, okay? Okay, 11 years. And I work on multiple products. And recent years I focus on PowerApps API. And even though our talk is about the PowerApps API and the PowerApps, we are happy to stay after if you have any PowerApps API questions. All right, Eric.
Cool. So what we'll be doing today is creating an app in PowerApps from the bottom up using PyWeb API. As a quick show of hands, who here has experience with PyWeb API?
No, those chairs are in the wrong spot. You're in screen, both of you.
Yep.
Okay.
It's
And
fine. Yeah, go ahead.
who here has experience with PowerApps?
Wow. Wow.
Cool.
Cool.
Well, we'll be having the assumption that you have either little to no experience with PyWeb API in this talk, so we'll be going up from the ground up, right?
Yeah, well, we will give a very quick go through about the PowerApps API and the PowerApps. So if you have no idea what is they about, it's okay. We take slowly. The good news is the learning curve of PowerApps API, both PowerApps API and the PowerApps, it's not that steep. So that's why we like it, and we want to combine them together today.
Right. So why is this talk useful? What will you get for your business from listening to us? Well, imagine the scenario that you have your Pi system set up, you have your hierarchy all set up in AF, and data is flowing into Data Archive. But then some special business use case comes in. Maybe you want to change the look and feel of our visualization, or you have other technologies you want to integrate with your Pi data. Well, it sounds like you need some sort of custom solution. And PyWeb API is one of the many developer technologies that we offer in order to create custom solutions with your Pi data. But then developer technologies, developers cost money. We know that because we're developers.
Yep.
Well, we're here to tell you today that you don't have to be a developer in order to use our developer technologies. There are products in the market today, like PowerApps, that feature drag-and-drop user experience in order to create custom applications. So I don't have to be fancy-schmancy developer in order to create a fancy mobile or tablet application. In today's fictional use case that will feature inside the application that we're going to create, we have Joe from Super Petrochemicals, and he has this morning ritual every morning where he has to go through all the tanks inside his company, and he checks their statuses and assigns people to do maintenance on them. And he doesn't every morning want to have to go through all the PyVision displays. He wants a one-stop shop in order to look through all the tanks, find their statuses, and then contact the appropriate maintenance engineers to do maintenance on them. This is the app that we're going to create today. You're able to search the statuses of tanks according to their level, check them out, check their statuses, and we have a fancy map image in order for further visualization. And then he can ask the maintenance engineer, that's my email by the way, I'm not a maintenance engineer, but, and then he'll contact them via PowerApps push notification. You guys interested in seeing the application? Cool. Ooh, picture, nice.
Which notification system?
Push notifications. So I have, pardon?
From you guys?
No.
It's from PowerApps themselves.
Okay.
So I'll show you. It'll be on my phone via push notification.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have questions at any time, feel free to ask them. We'll be happy to oblige.
Yeah, Erica is going to give a quick demo.
So this is the app that Joe would look at, and he can go through the region elements. Our asset hierarchy is set up like so. The top level elements are regions, and inside he has tanks organized like so, and can check out the statuses via these properties here. So let's say I want to search for tanks in the Philadelphia region over level 25. Let's do something more so we have more tanks here. And then I can further click on it, drill in for more details. And then I can say, I think this tank needs maintenance done on it. So then I'm able to create a notification and tell my maintenance engineer, tank is on fire. And I'll turn on notifications on my phone. Stop it. And then I'll press the notify button. And then I pray it works. Yeah, maybe you didn't hear that, but I just got a notification from PowerApps that says the tank is on fire. I got to go wrong, sorry. You guys interested in seeing how we made this app?
Yes.
Nice. Thank you for the energy. All right. Before we get into how this app is created, I'm going to give a little background on how PowerApps actually works and how to integrate it with your Pi system. PowerApps applications are hosted in the cloud, but your Pi system is located somewhere on premises. Your Pi Web API instance is maybe behind some sort of DMZ. So in order for PowerApps to be able to retrieve your Pi system data, you need some form of communication via something called the on-premises data gateway. And this is something that Microsoft offers. So if you install your on-premises data gateway, your PowerApps applications have a means to contact your Pi Web API instances inside your DMZ, as well as contacting your AF server and your data archive.
I just want to make a clear. The data gateway is free software, so you don't need to pay anything to Microsoft. Microsoft will only charge you on the Power App service. And we were talking about the pricing later. And the communication is like the Power Apps not calling the data gateway. The data gateway calling the Power Apps. So you don't need to worry about, I need to open a firewall port on my DMZ or whatever. And it's actually it's like the gateway calling the Power Apps, not the Power Apps calling you. So I just want to make sure it's like
So does the on-premise data gateway, does that only work with PowerApps, or is it?
I believe so, right?
It works for PowerApps and other Microsoft technologies. For example, there's another Microsoft product called Microsoft Flow.
Oh, yeah.
And that, has a lot of automation. You can build in a lot of automation like.
But you couldn't have like a custom application now, like even in Azure, AWS or something, and have it talk through that?
Correct, unless Microsoft has built-in support for that, because I know they use it for other products. Okay.
Can I?
Sure.
I don't want to answer right now, but you can share the question if you want to. But I see the scenario you have your Pi system on premise.
Mm-hmm.
What about OCS in the future? Is this vision that a PowerApp will consume OCS directly?
It's possible, yes. I'll show you later, but with PowerApps, there's a concept of custom connectors, which we're going to create today.
Okay.
And a custom connector defines, okay, here's what I can do to this public web API endpoints. So you can also create a custom connector for OCS. All right. We'll be splitting the demo of building the application into 3 parts: the search screen, the detail screen, and a notification screen. But we'll only work on the notification screen if time is permitting. but I'm anticipating there'll be a lot of questions, so we'll see about that. All right, first the search screen, and this is where Joe has to query through the tanks in various regions over a certain tank level. And this is using PyWPI, of course, and he's searching his AF hierarchy. But first, before we do that, Rong here is going to explain how do we actually retrieve this information via PyWPI, because we must have this knowledge first before we integrate that with PowerApps itself.
All right. So thank you, Eric. So in these slides, I summarize the general 4 best practices you should apply when you use PowerAPI. So I go one by one, and let's first take a quick look. What is PowerAPI really means in your system? So which one? Oh, sorry. All right.
Also make sure to, there you go.
Thank you.
I think that RDP.
All right. So
Oh, wait, it went back. There you go.
all right, thank you. So after you install, configure, and started a PowerAPI successfully, you should be able to access PowerAPI using the URL and using a normal any web browser like this. Because the PowerAPI installed here, so you put in the server name and then the fixed path of PowerAPI, and you will get a HTTP page back. And this one give you a very nice summarize of what a PowerAPI look like, and it will send back a JSON payload, and with a lot of links. And then one nice feature with PowerAPI is you have the online help running and side by side with PowerAPI. So when you click, you get all the information about how are you going to use PowerAPI. For anybody new to PowerAPI, I always suggest you go to the Get Started page, and it will tell you what is the design principles, and will help you to understand how to best use PowerAPI, like the resource oriented, what is stateless mean, and what is navigated by links. And we putting a lot of efforts make every resource are linked by each other, so make your navigation much easier.
Is the web API included with every deployment?
That's a good question. So last official release, PyWebAPI is included into the server integrated setup kit, but we will separate it out after the upcoming release.
For SP2 or?
SP2, I believe. Yeah, in the SP2 2019 SP2, R2 actually, R2 SP2?
I'm not definitely sure.
Yeah,
SP1 has it built in?
I think so. The last release should have a PyWebAPI not building in the integrated setup kit. So if you select, you can install the PyWebAPI with AF server.
If you have specific questions on the releases as well, come check out our developer technologies booth. Our TPM, our technical project manager, is usually over there, and he has a clear. He's actually standing over there now, and he's waving his hand. So you can visit him about the specifics on that.
Yep, that's right.
You need to install it on the server, the AF server itself, right?
You can install with AF server, yes.
But it doesn't have to be installed on the same machine.
It doesn't have to be on the same machine.
Correct.
Correct.
Can you install it on your developer machine?
Yes.
Sure, yeah.
You can install with any web application or any server, but we recommend that you always use a separate box because PowerAPI consumes a significant amount of memory, especially you want to handle a huge payload.
But you need to authenticate and connect to the server, right? There's definitely something.
Yeah, we support a multiple authentication method, including Kerberos basic and claim-based authentications. Yeah, and in the future we will support more.
You said you recommend the PowerAPI having being its own box.
Yes.
So, like we're separating out our Pi server and AF server. We have PyVision and PowerAPI with our AF server. So you're saying VI should be on its own server?
You can do that, but and actually, we recommend that you put in, if you have a huge load, I recommend that you put in multiple instances of PowerApps API behind the load balancer. And PowerApps API are capable to handle even higher use case, higher use load in that case. So yeah, just treat the PowerApps API as a server, and you will see. Like this general recommendation from Microsoft, that you can install SQL Server with other server, but recommend you to install a separate box. All right. Another interesting idea in PowerApps API is Web ID. It's like unique to, it's right now PowerApps API. It's like encoded information about a resource. We treated everything as a resource in PowerApps API, like Python, AF server, elements, attribute. Anything in PowerApps API world is a resource. And then for a resource, you need an ID, a unique ID, a URL-friendly unique ID, and cross multiple AF servers to uniquely identify which resource we are talking about here. So, and we support multiple web IDs. I show you the details. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff here, so I don't want to go through everything, but it's just like this is a great starting point if you are not familiar with. And another nice thing about PowerApps API is for each controller, each action, we have very dedicated, detailed help. Tells you what URL parameters you can provide and what is status codes you want. It means when you get a response and the sample response, what would look like. So let's go to the first thing. So we call this the landing page for PowerApps API, and you have multiple links, and one of the links is as a server. And usually this is the first stop if you have no idea what your system have. And so this tells you the list of the AF servers this PowerApps API connected to. And and it's so easy to access. You just put in the URL here, and you get a response. And so it's a lot of data, right? So people will say, I don't care about a lot of data in this response. So I probably only care about the web ID, which is a unique ID of this resource, and the ID or probably the name of my Pi server, and probably the path or something else. So a good thing is you can select the response. We provide a select fields parameter for almost every GET request. So the select fields tells you, allow you to tell the PowerApps API server what fields you want to return. So I give you an example. So this is our response without any select fields. So let's select fields equals items. I only care about the web ID. Items, I only care about name. Probably items description. The benefits of you strip down the response is you get a smaller payload, and you have less bits transmitted over the wire, get a less latency, network latency, especially over a slow network. So this is one of the best practice you want to apply. And as you can see, the web ID is usually very long. And if you go back to the help page, we have another parameters called web ID type. Right now we support 5 types, and by default we encoded every information into the web ID. And based on your use case, you probably don't need that information. And please remember, more information means more expensive to compute to calculate the information and encode it. So in our case, sometimes we don't care about the past information, and I always recommend people just encode the ID into the web ID information. And as you can see, it's much, much shorter and it's immutable because the ID of the resource won't change over the time, but the name of the resource can be changed and causing the web ID changed over the time. So this is another suggestion I want to make is always thinking of just encoded the ID part into your web ID response. Let's go back to the slides. The last two recommendation I want to make is the compression. People always forget that actually PowerAPI support inbound compression and outbound compression at the same time. And for this talk, we only use GET requests, so the inbound compression is not a big deal. But if you have make a lot of POST requests, especially you want to put in a lot of data into PySystem, and compressions can save you a lot of time. Another advantage I want to of PowerAPI is we do a lot of optimization on the PowerAPI level. Stream set controller is one of the example. I hope you guys can understand that. And from my experience with users, people turn to just putting data into one attribute or one pi tag again. But actually, there's one of the optimization you can make is using take advantage of the stream set. So, for example, if you want to change putting a data of all the attributes on the one element, you can use the string set controller. I'll show you. So your update value, right? And as you can see, the web ID you need to put in here could be the parent elements or event frame or attribute. And then by doing so, you can put in update the values of the attributes under the parent's elements at one time, instead of you need to call the attributes each time. So it saves you a lot of round trip from your client side and to the PowerAPI. There's a lot of trick you can make here. All right, any question? All right. If not, let's move forward. Let's show how we're going to support Eric's fantastic Power App applications. So this time I'm going to use Postman because I like Postman. It's easy to use in browser. So I already have my solution, but I would like to create a collection from scratch. And so you guys can follow me easily. So let's create a new collection. Let's call Pi Web API for Pi World 2019. All right, I just can click create. And before I go into details, I can configure the security edit, right? Configure the authorization and the collection level, so I don't need to configure the configuration, security authentication at the request level. So for now, I use some basic authentication. I have my username and the password. I forgot to mention the reason I want to use the Postman is because PowerApps support you to take the export from the Postman and directly import it into the PowerApps. So make our life much easier. So save your time. And so Eric will show how you're going to take the export from the Postman and import it to PowerApps. All right, after we set up the authentication, then we add the first request. Like I mentioned before, the first request, if you have no idea what's your PowerAPI connected to, the first request always you want to get a list of the app server this PowerAPI connected to. So let's see the request name is get as a server. Let's see as a server list. So the meaning is I want to list all the SS servers this PowerApp API link to. And since the PowerApp API is running locally, so I take the advantage. I don't need to remember the server name. I just use the local host. You can use the FQDN of the server name or the IP address or local host, and as long as you can find your PowerApp API. So we know we have a prefix path, PowerApp API. And as I mentioned before, everything in PowerApp API is a resource. And resource has a name. And for AF server, we call it SS servers. So resource, SS servers. And remember, let's see, try it out, see what I get. Unauthorized.
Go to authorization.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's already set, but something's wrong with your credentials.
Let's try edit, authorization. Maybe I wrong password.
You want to try my credentials?
Sure. I did.
What just happened? Oh, over here. Oh, this isn't part of the collection. So this request is now part of the collection. There you go.
Okay. Yeah, this is a collection. This is a request. All right. As you can see, we get the response back, and so far so good. And I mentioned that we probably don't need all those fields, so let's select fields. And the value is items.webid. I want a web ID. Items.name. I want the name. And web ID type. I don't like my web ID so long. So ID only.
And remember, we're adding these parameters because I want my data faster and I want my information faster.
Less is more, right? All right, so the response looks like exactly what we want. So let's save it. And before you save it, if you want to support the PowerApps, you probably want to save the example. So the benefit of if you save this example is because it gives the hints to the PowerApps what the response will look like. So the PowerApps can help you to build up the DTO and data transfer object for you because they can map the fields to object inside the PowerApps easily. So I always recommend people to save the example. And now you're good. We are good. We finished the first request. All right. So now we have a list of AF servers. Of course, our system is simple. Only have one server, right? But in your production environment, you probably have a lot of AF servers. So usually you have multiple items in the response. But right now, just one, the PowerApps AF server. And the next step, you want to list all your databases on this server or on one of the server you are interested. So we create a new task, new request.
It's collection.
Yeah. Add a request. And the request would be as a server and get certain database. All right. So of course we already we know what we want. So we know we call it as a database, and so if you are interested or not familiar with, you always go back to the help page to find the controller or action you are interested. Look at how to use that action. You test that out in web browser or on your Postman directly. Since I'm familiar with that, so I go directly to the action. And again, I put in the URL, localhost, PowerApps API. And please remember, we said every resource is linked to each other in PowerAPI. So this gives you an example. Because I want to get all the databases on a certain server. So how we get there? Of course, we get it from started from the server itself. So as a server, and let's see. There's another trick in Postman, right? So you can define a variable yourself. So let's see, and we need to provide.
I actually think it's Postman has : syntax for path parameters.
Yeah. Column. Yeah, that's right. So in the Postman, you use a column to define a variable in your path. So here I defined a variable called SL server web ID, and which can help us to uniquely identify which F server we are interested. And from that SL server, I want to list all the SL databases. All right. So then people will ask you, how can I get the SL server web ID? Remember, in the last request response, we have the information from the response. So that's where we can take advantage and just copy and paste here. And let's try and see what we have now. Voila, we get the response. And it's more information than before. And it tells you the web ID of the database, the name of the database, and how many databases we have? We have 2 databases. One is a configuration database. If you are familiar with AF, we always get a configuration database. And we have another database, which is the real database we are interested in, which is the PyWorld 2019. Again, we apply the best practice. We don't need the whole data. So select fields. And probably I just care about web ID. I'm interested in the name.
And recall in our application, it searches the servers in the drop-down box that was selected in the beginning, and then you can search through the databases. And this is what Rong is getting now. The databases associated with this asset server.
All right, after the modification, as you can see, the size of the payload is much, much less again. All right, let's keep going on. Oh, don't forget to save the example. To help PowerApps. All right, so one more. After we get the database, then we need to get remember, in our AF structure, the top level elements are the regions, and they are fixed, they won't change. So we take advantage of that, and we just list all the top level elements of the database and give it a name as a database. All right. So I just type in the PowerAPI path again. So this time, instead of linking from the server to the database, we linked from the database to the elements. Oops. Databases. All right. And this time we need to provide the web ID to the database. And I define a web ID parameter. And remember, I want to get all the elements on the top level. This time I just provide the select fields directly. I care about web ID. I care about the name. Do I care about anything else?
And remember that you can always kind of translate the URL into the resource that you're accessing. So when it says /PyWebAPI/asset databases/web ID, it says, for this asset database of this web ID, please get me the elements associated with this.
All right, so we define a parameter here. We need to get the database web ID. So I believe this one is what we want. So just copy and paste here. And try. All right, so we have all the region elements: Harrisburg, Lancaster, Philadelphia, and Quakertown. Let's look good. Save the example.
I guess it should be noted that we're from the Philadelphia office, and I think I'm supposed to brag about our sports teams or something.
All right, so we finished 3 and 2 more to go. Remember, Eric mentioned that we're in the morning, every morning. What's his name? Joe?
Joe from
Joe.
Super Petrochemicals.
Joe wants to find the tank with problem with some search criteria, right? So, and each tank is represented as an element under the region's elements, and it's hard to, if you have millions or not millions, thousands of tanks, it's very hard to browse by click. So you probably want to search. So PyWebAPI support very complex or advanced search capability. One of them is element search. So let's name the new request called element search. And for the element search, let's go back to the help page first. So you go to element search. I want to spend more time because element search is kind of complicated than before, the last 3. So if you are interested, it's called get elements query. And the URL itself is simple. It's just elements and /search. The difficult part is how are you going to build up the query. The query string is we use the AF SDK element search query syntax directly. So make it easier if you already have an AF SDK application, you can just copy the query syntax over. And if you're new, don't worry, there's a very detailed help link to tell you how to build up your search query yourself. So,
Comment on that?
Sure.
When I first had it, was amazingly confusing.
Yeah, I know.
So I was able to get through it, but that's probably something that you could improve on. PowerAPI help is this.
Yes.
At least what's
Yes, I totally agree with you. It's you are not like I'm confused at first, but after we work with that, I think this I guess this is the best solution for now, because AF structure is so complicated. If you don't have very confusing syntax, you cannot support the complex you want to support.
But if you want to submit a request to our product manager, he loves it when we give him more work to do.
We definitely keep in mind want to make it simplify, and we also thinking of if you have your search case, you probably call us, and we can give you help. And I think we have a decent, good tech support. And if you have any question, or even you make a post in the PySquare, and another user probably can help you. So just user help a user. Yeah, just to give us your search use case, we probably can come up something for you. All right, so again, due to the limitation of the time, I don't want to go to the details, but I can construct the URL, and Eric can explain side by side. So again, PyWebAPI, we want to do element search. All right, so fun part. So first, we need the roots. The roots can be the search roots. The roots can be element where you want to start from the search. The roots, for our case, we want to search every element or every tank inside a certain database. So our roots is the database web ID. And again, so we have the web ID information of the database, which is called here. All right. Then maybe that's another way. Because it's very hard to edit the query parameter if you have a long URL, so I put it here. So the second one is the query. It's the same thing, you put in your query parameter here or there, but it's just easier to edit here. So let's do the query. So ideally, you create your tank element based on AF element template. So it makes your search quicker and easier. So in our case, yes, we do have a template. So we call it template. We need to pay attention to the case. So template, and we know the tank. We call it the tank, the template as tank, and with a space. Then we want to do some value search, right? If I remember correctly.
Yep. Our application searches tanks by the level.
So we know the attribute is called a level, and so the column, the pipe, it means I want to search a attribute called level of that element, and the value is greater or less or whatever, something. For now, I just like the random number 10. How about the level is greater than 10%? And this is our search criteria. And
yeah, don't get too hooked up on the search query syntax because we know it's a monster right now. But just know we are searching some database for their tanks of over a certain level.
For this one, I think it's not that bad at all. So I can explain it here. It's like an AF element template. I wanted this element template against the tank template. And I want this element has an attribute called level, and its current value is greater than 10. And the third one, I want the roots of this tank. Of this element is based on an element called Philadelphia. Remember, our top level of elements is region.
Would that be the same if you had to get also elements from a derived template?
Derived templates, I believe, if memory serves correctly, have their own syntax. So you'd have to refer back to the search query syntax on our help pages for derived templates, yes.
All right, so again, I want to provide some select views. All right, so what do you say? Select views. I only care about the web ID again. I care about the path. And I care about the type of the, not the times, items. All right, and the web ID type equals ID only. And let's give it a try. No fun. Okay, so let's debug.
Yeah, he's right.
Oh, thank you. All right, so we found the 4 elements. Let's try change our query syntax a little bit to like 60 and see what we have different. If we change it to 60, we only return 2. So that means the search works. Let's save the example. All right, the last one. I promise this is the last one. I know everybody is trying to see the PowerApps. String, set, get. So last one, we want to get all the values of the element or the tank we already found. And we try to dive in to see what's going on in that tank. So probably you want to get some time series data of that element. And that's we use the string set HTTPS, again, localhost, PowerAPI, it's just normal. And this controller we call stream sets. And remember, stream set, you can provide the web ID. The web ID could be the parent element, or the parent attribute, or parent event frame. In our case, it's a parent element. And I just care about the end value. The end value means if it's the end value is complicated. It could be snapshot value, or could be recorded value of the last recorded value, and could be a future value if your PyTag future flag is turned on. So, but assume just we care about the end value. What is the end of string means? And what we care about? Select fields again. I probably still want the web ID. I want the name of the string or the attributes. I care about the value. And because the value is a complex object, so inside the value you have timestamp and the value is value, and value is URN, value is abbreviation, URN abbreviation, a lot of property of the value. So I tell PowerAPI I only care about the value of timestamp. And items value dot value. Items dot value dot.
Something's wrong with your syntax. You had a typo. Did you specify the selected fields parameter?
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Unit abbreviations. Right? Yeah. It's hard to type. Yeah. Okay. Then web ID type. ID only. Let's try. Web ID must not. Oh, I forgot to put in web ID parameter. So for this one, it's easy. I can pick up any web ID I want to use from the previous one. Response. As you can see, if I don't provide anything, the PowerAPI tells you something meaningful in the response. Help you troubleshooting. All right. So, Eric, does this look good to you, to your app?
Looks good to me, Rong. Thanks.
Okay. So
Doing all the dirty work for me.
let's save it. And Eric, this is the PowerAPI request I guess you need. So now I turn it to you.
Thanks, Rong. So what Rong has done for us is given our app the knowledge it needs in order to function. It knows how to access the Pi system data necessary for Joe to make decisions. As Rong said before, you can directly export your Postman collection and have it be imported by PowerApps. So I'll show it now. If you go to edit, or actually rather export, currently PowerApps only supports collection v1 for Postman. Even though it says deprecated, we'll have to use that for now. And I'm going to export the collection onto the desktop. And then we'll use it inside PowerApps. Now, PowerApps has this concept, as I said before, of custom connectors. Connectors are something like a template that define, here's what I can do to a certain data source. In our case, we want to create a custom connector for PyWebAPI. And that'll define, hey, when I talk to PyWebAPI, what can I do? So I can, as you see, directly take the created Postman collection and import it into PowerApps. And this is the one that Rong created earlier for us. And I'm just going to call it PyAPI demo for now. And you can customize how it looks, description, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As I said before, our PyWeb API instance is located on-premise, and it's talking to PowerApps via the on-premise data gateway, which is why I'm selecting this box here. And we have to customize the authentication mechanism. Currently, we have basic authentication turned on for simplicity purposes right now, but you can also use Windows authentication for Kerberos support as well. And recall, these are the actions that Rong made for us, and this was imported via the Postman collection. And these define, hey, here's what I can do when I talk to PyWeb API from PowerApps. And you see that PowerApps is smart enough to detect the parameters that Rong was putting in earlier, such as the web ID, the selected fields, web ID type. So I don't have to create a bunch of code in order to have this request already set up for me. There are some quirks about importing Postman collections in here. For example, it'll say, here's the default value, but I don't want that for every request. Like, for every stream set get enter request, I don't want to have this default value associated with it, so I don't accidentally query the same tank constantly. So you'll have to sift through the request inside your custom connector definition in order to clean it up a little bit. But for the sake of time, I'm going to use the connector that I've already made for us. And you can assume I've cleaned up the parameters over here already. And then after you clean up the definition of your custom connector, you have to test it. Now, a custom connector is the template for what you can do to a certain data source. And in PowerApps, there's a concept of a connection. A connection is an instance of your custom connector. It's specifically, OK, here's, for example, one instance of PyWeb API I can talk to. I've already created a connection here, and this is actually the VM that you're seeing here already. And then when I want to test it, there's a convenient GUI over here to say, OK, if I asked PyWeb API right now for the ACID servers it knows about, this is PowerApps speaking to my PyWeb API instance via the on-premise data gateway. It's taking a little bit. There we go. And this is the same response that Rong received earlier when he did so in Postman. I won't test the rest of these, but it's probably best practice to make sure all your requests are OK. All right, now we have our custom connector and connection that our PowerApps app will use to contact PyWeb API. So now it's actually time to create our app. Hooray.
Yay.
And recall that we're first going to focus on the search screen. So if we go over here and create my application, I'm just going to call this demo for now. There's also the phone layout if you're interested in making a mobile version of your application as well. But for today, we'll be using the tablet format. PowerApps features the drag and drop user experience. So if I want to insert things such as buttons or labels, I just press these controls over here, and I can modify the buttons as I wish to get the feel and look that I want. So what we're going to do right now is create the UI skeleton of our application. So this includes the buttons and drop-downs that I included earlier. For example, I had a search button located over here. And let's, for reference, go to the application and see what it looks like. So I have 3 screens inside this application: search screen, details screen, and notification screen. The search screen features drop-downs to retrieve the servers, the databases, the region elements, and an input to search by tank levels, and places where I can see my results. And I have my map image in my detail screen, and my notification screen has input box to send my notification and the button to actually send it. So I'll show me dragging a few of these UI controls just so you can get a feel of how it looks like inside PowerApps. For example, the gallery is something that shows a list of results inside PowerApps. And this is going to show my tank details. And right now it's populated with sample data just so you can get a feel of what it looks like inside PowerApps. And I would do this, rename it to details screen. And here's me showing, putting an additional screen. And this would be, sorry, this is actually the search screen. And this would be the details screen. And recall that this screen had the details of the tank, such as the pressure, the temperature. And now you don't want to see me drag and dropping all of these UI components. So I've already created a template application with all these UI components already on there. So I'll just go to that now.
But we can still explain the configuration of each control on that page, right?
Yeah. And I'll show it to you now. So this is just the UI skeleton of this application, and we'll populate it to be able to retrieve the data via PyWeb API. All right. Recall that this box had the list of servers that PyWeb API was aware about. Now, how do we actually have PowerApps retrieve information from PyWeb API? Well, if you go to data sources over here, and remember, there was a connection that I added for PyWeb API over here, like so. This represents my connection to PyWeb API. If I ask this data source for something, I can say, hey, PyWeb API, please get me the list of asset servers. So if I go here and say, OK, the items associated with this drop-down box come from my PowerApps PyWorld 2019 PyWeb API connection. And I say, you can see this IntelliSense-like completion that PowerApps features. And this is retrieving it from that custom connector definition. So I want the list of asset servers that PyWeb API knows about. So also remember that the format that PyWeb API responds with is an items object, or rather items array. So now this drop-down box knows about the servers associated with PyWeb API, and I'm just going to force it to reevaluate by doing that. And this top progress bar is saying I'm contacting my PyWeb API right now. It's taking a bit longer today. But for now, I must do the holy action of saving before something goes terribly wrong. That's taken a bit, so I'm just going to assume it's OK for now, and it'll eventually probably populate, but I'll populate the rest of these drop-down boxes. This database drop-down needs to know about the databases associated with the selected server. So I can say PowerApps 2019. Remember, I want the get databases call. And I want to ask the server drop-down, hey, what did the user select? Please give me the selected server's web ID. Remember, in PyWeb API, a lot of resources are associated with a certain web ID. And remember to get the items array so that this drop-down box has the items.
I'm just
the
curious,
databases.
how many of you have experience with Visual Basic? It reminds me a lot with Visual Basic programming.
Yeah, it's sort of like Excel too, and Excel gives some people heart attacks, but it's better than full-blown development environment with that confusion. Let me force this to reevaluate again. Yeah, something must be wrong with the on-premise data gateway or something, because it's taken a while to get the information from PyWeb API. Ah, there we go.
There we go. It just take a while.
Yeah, and I want this box to say, hey, this server has some web ID associated with it. Retrieve that web ID and input it into my get databases PyWeb API call. So I'm going to force this to reevaluate again, and you see, I have the databases associated with this AF server. All right, so same process again. Please get me the top level elements which represent the regions inside my AF hierarchy. Thank God for IntelliSense. Base dropdown. Please get me the web ID associated with the selected database. I'm just going to force this to reevaluate again. There we go. Correct.
Correct.
Currently, the connection to PyWeb API being used is associated with one account, but you can tie it to Kerberos Windows authentication so that whoever logs onto the app, it should use their credentials. This will eventually reevaluate from what's going on over here. But I'm going to keep populating the rest of the UI controls. Level. So this is the level operator, whether I want to say search for tanks greater than, less than, or equal to a certain value, so that the user can say, okay, today I want to search for tanks less than a certain level. So I'm going to populate it with the AF operators for the search query syntax.
By the way, we have more operators supported. Eric just shows 3 for his app. So
there we go, it's working again. So now we have the databases, the top level region elements, so that our app is aware of it, and then we can input some tank level for the user to search by. Now I need to have it so that when the user presses the search button, we can use that search query syntax that Rong showed us earlier to search for tanks of a certain condition. So when I press this button, I want to say, okay, PyWeb API, please call the element search. The database web ID is what the user selected from the database drop-down box. And the search query syntax. So it's pretty complicated. I'll take what Rong graciously gave us earlier. Oops. Oh, it's taking the whole thing from Postman. So what I want to happen is I want to be able to have the user specify whether I want to search for tanks over greater than or less than a certain level, the value of the level, and what region I want to select. So I must modify this query string to take what the user inputted from the application. So I can do that via string manipulation inside PowerApps. It's also, again, very similar to Excel. So I'm saying, all right, take the search operator from the, what did I call that control? Operator dropdown. From the operator drop-down box, get me the operator that the user gave. Now I want the user input level text input that the user gave. And now I want to say, please get me the region element that the user specified. And I know I'm going to get this wrong because this was such a complicated string manipulation. But let's give it a shot. Actually, what I wanted, sorry, I missed a step. So PowerApps screens have this concept called context. Every screen here has its own encapsulated variable space. So when I say something like update context, I'm saying, okay, for this screen, please populate some variable so that the rest of the screen's controls have access to some results. So when I say tanks, the tanks variable has the value of this PyWeb API call. Other components of the application are able to access this tanks variable. And I want that because I want my gallery control to have access to the tanks from the search results. Let me check what's going on here. I've probably messed up my string manipulate. Here we go. So I want the tanks to be listed inside this gallery control here. So now this tanks gallery is aware of the tanks searched by the user, and I want in every section of this gallery to show the name of the tank. And I can do this by saying this item dot name. Actually, I again forgot from the element search to say dot items, because in our response DTOs, results are filled in the items array. All right, take two. All right, so it's working again. So now let me actually search for something and pray that it works. Searching.
Could you also use a daytime range?
Sure, yeah. Search query syntax probably includes
Yes,
daytimes
you
in
can
it.
daytime. You can do a lot of things.
Yeah. Search query syntax is very powerful. And now I noticed this did not work. So now it's time to check it out. I probably made some silly mistake.
No way.
I know I'm perfect. Oh, I see. So there's probably something wrong with my search query. For the sake of time, I'm just going to take my call that I made in the previous app so that you don't have to watch me debugging this constantly. So then we're going to try this again. There we go. Now you've seen that Joe from Super Petrochemicals can now search the tanks in his hierarchy for tanks over a certain level. And now I want to be able to drill down into these tanks so he can determine, do I need to do maintenance on these tanks? So I'd like to make it so that when Joe clicks on one of these tanks, he goes to the detail screen and gets further information on the tank. So I can do this by saying, okay, when the user selects a certain item, please navigate to the detail screen. And again, context.
Yeah.
I want to say, okay, for the next screen, please have this information readily available so that you can start manipulating it and interrogating PyWPI for more data.
So is context, you can define anything or some specific object you want to define as a context?
You can define anything. It's very flexible. It can just say, like, here's a number for you, or like, here's this complex object that you can use for further operations. So I'd say, here you go, next screen, take this tank. And this tank is associated with this item, which is saying the item that the user clicks. So if I click on this, I go to the next screen, and now this screen is aware of the tank that the user selected. But now we have to actually say, okay, now that we have the tank, please get me the values associated with this tank. What I want to do is, when I get on this screen, please get me the values of that tank. And again, that is via the stream set get end call. And this tank variable I'm accessing is given to me by the previous screen. And now the tank values are available for this screen to use. And same process again. I can say, hey, gallery, please show me the values of this tank. And I need to adjust these as well to say, okay, instead of that, I also forget again to...
Items.
Yep. Luckily, PowerApps has such powerful IntelliSense-like features that it knows when you've made a mistake. And please get me the value associated with it. So let me force it to refresh. Let's load it again. Yeah, it's usually faster than this, but I'll have to find out why it's so slow. Probably because we were on the East Coast.
Jet lag, right?
Yeah, the app is jet lagged.
So as you can see, you have a lot of controls available, and you can select different types of control to fit your purpose.
Yeah, if we wanted to put fancy charts and such for your application for more visualization, you can do so.
So Eric, can you build up your own customized control of the PowerApps, to your knowledge?
Not that I know of. There might be more extensibility requests when I saw the user voice, but
So the charts, will they be static based on the query?
they can be static or they can be dynamic, because you can do things like put timers inside your application to refresh like every 5 seconds.
Like a subscription?
Pardon?
Like a subscription to the data plan?
Yes. You can do,
Timer? Just a timer?
yes.
Yeah, you can set a timer.
All right. Now we have the data.
Is there another way to do this without Postman?
Without Postman? Yeah.
Between the PowerApps?
Their Postman is the most convenient way to do it, but you can define your connector from scratch as well. There's also the option to import a Swagger spec directly into PowerApps so that your definition is already created. But for us, we've generated Swagger.
So the problem is you probably don't need all the actions or all the features Power API provide, right? So it's just like if you use Swagger or Power API does support, it gives you Swagger definition, but it's just overkill. For our application, usually like a couple, or like for us, it's only we need 5 requests, and we can fine tune and find what fields we want to, what URL parameters. Probably we want some default value for them for some parameters. So we sort of like it's best we do. Of course, you can build up your Power Apps from scratch or using the Swagger, but I think it's
All right, cool. Now I want that fancy image so Joe has more visualization of his tank. Again, since the map image isn't coming from PyWeb API, of course, I want to use another connection that I've already created, which is the Bing Maps connection, to retrieve some static map images. And you couldn't see it here, but this control is an image control, and I can say, hey, Bing Maps, get me an image, and I'm going to say style of canvas light. Zoom level is zoom level, latitude. The latitude comes from my tank, which is, I say, hey, please go to my tank values and find me the latitude attribute so that Bing Maps can use it. Same thing for longitude. And now, let me refresh the screen. All right, it's actually accessing Bing Maps already.
What about the authentication?
Pardon?
Bing Maps?
What about Bing Maps?
You authenticate just
I've already set up the connection to Bing Maps, and it's associated with an API key. I didn't show that whole process for brevity, but if you have your own API key, you can just plug and play. I need to call up Microsoft and say, why are your Power App servers so slow today? But for now, I'll fill out this button. So create notification button. Again, like previous buttons. There we go. So now Joe can say, this is in my hometown of South Philly. I want to go to the notification screen now when I press this button. And we're running low on time. So this is where I'll stop with the app demo for now. But if you want to stay by, I can show you further how we create the notification screen if you're interested. But let's go through the summary of the app. Again, so Joe from Super Petrochemicals can now search for tanks over or under a certain level. So I'm searching Harrisburg now. Oh God, no. Since it's taken a while, let's just assume this is the data that we want, and then I can go to the detail screen and I can say, hey, this tank looks like it needs maintenance, and then I need to go contact someone about it, and I can say, hey, Eric, please check out this tank because it's on fire and we're going to lose a lot of money if we don't do so. And then I can press the notify button and have the notification pop up my screen. So PowerApps is an easy way for someone who isn't a developer to create custom applications. I don't need to have this fancy development environment. I don't need to put us in a job
Yep.
in order to create custom solutions with your Pi data.
And by the way, after you build one Power App application, you can share with your coworkers. You just give them the URL, and if they have the access to the Power API, they can access the data from your Power App application share with them. Of course, you can sign up your the notification and to multiple coworkers as well. So every time Eric click a button, and multiple people get a notification over their cell phone or email box. So this could be provide an alternative to if you want to build a custom dashboard application or notification solution to your customized problem or issues your daily work life.
And yeah, without further ado, we have about 8 minutes for questions, and if you have any additional questions, feel free to stick by. We'll be available as well.
Oh, by the way, Eric, do you have any pricing information? Of course, Microsoft is not free.
Yeah, there are a couple PowerApps plans available right now. There's something called Plan 1 and Plan 2. Plan 1, I think, suffices for using the on-premise data gateway and accessing your Pi data. And that's $7 a month per user. But if there's more advanced, fancy features in Plan 2, that's $40 a month per user.
That's just to create the apps, right? The users who consume the app or
The users who they need it as well because the functionality is to access your on-premise data.
So what you showed us was the $7 per month unit?
Yes. But, I don't have to pay the MSDN enterprise license for my developer and his salary. Saving money. Any more additional questions?
So your on-premise data gateway, is that set up across your whole network, or would you specify, I want these web sources to be available? How does that work?
Where your machine is located, if you install your on-premise data gateway, it's as if PowerApps is right there. So if you're...
So you would install an agent on that machine, basically, and then that would make it accessible to...
Yes, it can reach out to your resources.
Yeah, my understanding, you need to install the side-by-side with the Power API, right?
You don't have to. That's what I did for...
You install what?
I installed it in this demo side-by-side by Power API, but you don't have to. Whatever your on-premise data gateway can touch, PowerApps can touch.
Okay.
So you could install it on a centralized server, and as long as it could access the other, if you had multiple Power APIs,
Yes.
different servers, you could do that.
That's correct. Okay.
Performance. Doesn't look like it works very quickly. So can I use this web API for real-time applications?
The performance was bad because of demo syndrome. It normally works faster. My guess is something is off on Microsoft's side because a lot of the operations that I saw taking a long time were the query starting on PowerApps.
So in our defense, our Power API, our app server, and data archive are running in a VM in the Azure environment. So it takes some time to connect or communicate with VM on the cloud. So when we're testing our local environment, it should be faster.
So why say when I use this API for updating some website with real-time data?
So you want to make a post to data?
Let's say we have a server and data that updates every 10 milliseconds.
10 milliseconds.
Yeah, every 10 milliseconds. There is new data.
Well, let's just say it. 1 second.
Okay,
To be honest, we haven't tested it out, but my guess is PowerApp is not for that kind of application. It's my guess. Like a 10 millisecond is like a.
we are testing performance on some device. Like you see a temperature of the device going up and down.
So it would not be a good candidate for a process book replacement?
No, I wouldn't
For-
say.
Yeah, for super high-speed updates, I wouldn't recommend this. But of course, there's process book itself, if you want that.
Do you have these examples somewhere on some site we can download?
Unfortunately, we can't directly share our PowerApps app because it's only within our organization namespace that we've created in. But of course, I believe this talk is recorded, and
Yeah.
you can refer back to this.
Yeah. So the.
Export it and share it in a different namespace, so you can make the files available.
Oh, you can? Oh, wait. I kind of remember that feature now. Yeah.
Would you be able to at least share the Postman?
Yeah, we can do
Seems so,
so.
yes.
I need to find a medium to do that. Maybe we'll do it on PySquare. That might be an option. So I'll look into doing that. I'll take note of that.
Yeah, I take a note actually.
Thanks. We have a few more minutes.
Is anybody embedding PowerApps within PyVision?
No, that is not currently a goal of ours. But the purpose of this talk today is to say, hey, if you have some sort of custom solution, you could use PowerApps. But direct integration, if you want that, you can ask our TPMs about that and give them more work to do, and give us more work.
The one thing I thought about the help was that it doesn't have enough examples. Like sometimes it's just got like some stuff underneath it, and then it's like, well, you try to put that actually together in as a web URL, it doesn't work.
We're talking about PyWebPI itself, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we definitely work on that to improve our help system.
And I'll give your guys some more work if you want me to.
Yeah, come by the developer booth. But yeah, there's actually something,
Yeah,
I
we
think
are
I'm allowed
looking
to talk about it,
Yeah.
that we're working on putting more examples in various programming languages for PyWebPI as our help system.
I can tell you, one project we are working on is we try to prepare sample codes for PyWebPI in different languages, like Python, like JavaScript, jQuery, and we were working on how to deliver that. Could be embedded in our help system, could be provided as zip file download for all the sample codes. Hopefully that will help you.
One of the ways I would figure stuff out sometimes is I have the client tools and I'd use Fiddler, and then it would show me
Yeah.
what's actually going on underneath.
Yeah, we love Fiddler as well. Postman does some black magic sometimes.
Well, do you recommend this way to go for manual data entry?
Manual data entry is an interesting story, and I've heard another gentleman actually ingresses via PowerApps as well. But PowerApps currently has some peeves about post requests with PyWebAPI because PowerApps expects a JSON response from your web APIs. So then our post requests don't return any responses. So sometimes PowerApps will bug out a little bit and say, hey, I think there was supposed to be a response here when I did this post request. But in reality, the post request succeeded. So currently, I don't recommend it, but it's available as a hack if you need to.
Okay.
Yes?
Once you're finished with your application and you're happy with it, is there a way to get the application to the Google Play Store and the App Store? Or is that separate?
That's a separate thing. When we create our applications, they're actually contained to your organization because you need some sort of company-associated email to use PowerApps. So anyone in your organization needs to download PowerApps in order to...
Because you said you could do it on the phone, so I don't know how you actually get it on a person's phone.
I have PowerApps downloaded on my phone, and that's why I was able to receive that notification and access the dashboard.
You need to install an app, PowerApps app.
Yeah.
And then you sign in with your corporate account.
And then you can use the app.
Yeah. Remember the lady mentioned the namespace. The namespace actually is your company subscription to Azure resource, and the Power App can finally use your SSO to make a push to your cell phone through your apps. Oh, thank you everybody. I think our time's up, and hopefully you find this talk helpful and give you some thought. And
We'll be right outside if you have any more questions, though.
Sure.
So
Yeah, we will be outside. Thank you.
thanks so much.